July 1st, 2010, 5 a.m., Huntsville, Texas. Michael James Perry woke up in a concrete box, knowing this would be his last sunrise. Most people think the execution is the punishment, but in reality, that's the mercy. The real torture? The final 24 hours. Imagine knowing the exact hour you'll die, watching the clock tick away your final moments, saying goodbye to your mother through bulletproof glass, knowing you'll never feel her touch again, choosing your last meal while your stomach churns with dread. This is the story of Michael Perry's final day on Earth, and by the end, you'll understand why those last 24 hours were far worse than the 15 minutes it took to kill him. At just 28 years old, Michael Perry was one of the youngest people executed in modern Texas history. His crime? A triple murder in 2001 that shocked even seasoned investigators. He killed Sandra Stotler, a woman who had once shown him kindness, her 16-year-old son Adam, and his friend Jeremy Richardson, 18. All for a red Camaro. Perry was 19 when he pulled the trigger. He spent only 8 years on death row, a fraction of the time most death row inmates wait. While others languish for decades, the state moved swiftly to end his life. But on this day, his final day, time moved differently. Each second stretched into an eternity. Each moment became a torture chamber of its own design. Let me walk you through what makes the final 24 hours worse than death itself. At 5 a.m., Perry opened his eyes in what's called the Death Watch cell, a 6 by 10-foot concrete box located just steps from the execution chamber. Think about that. You're sleeping next to the room where you'll die. You can probably hear them preparing it, testing the gurney, checking the intravenous lines, making sure everything's ready to end your life. This isn't like a hospital where death might come. This is a factory floor where death is scheduled, processed, and executed with mechanical precision. Perry had been in solitary confinement for 8 years, 23 hours a day in a windowless cell. But this was different. This was the final cell, the last stop, the waiting room before oblivion. Most of us fear death because we don't know when it will come. But Perry knew, down to the minute, 6 p.m. Imagine having that knowledge. You can't escape it. You can't bargain with it. You watch the clock transform from a simple timepiece into an instrument of psychological warfare. Each hour that passes is simultaneously a gift and a curse. You want time to slow down, but you also want it to speed up, to end the unbearable anticipation. The guards' footsteps echo differently on execution day. There's a deliberate pace to their movements. They speak softer, more carefully, like they're tiptoeing around a wounded animal. Perry could hear everything through the steel door, the buzz of fluorescent lights, the clanking of cell doors, other inmates calling out, some offering prayers, others staying silent out of respect or fear. Every sound could be the sound, the one that signals its time. At 6 a.m., a tray slid through the door slot. Scrambled eggs, toast, oatmeal, and milk. Perry picked at it mechanically. Not because he was hungry. How could anyone have an appetite? But because it was something to do. A ritual. A distraction from the clock. He left most of it untouched. Food loses its meaning when you're counting down your final hours. At 8 a.m., Perry was given time to shower, to clean himself. There's something deeply disturbing about this ritual, preparing your body for death like preparing for a ceremony. He stood under the water, feeling its warmth, knowing this sensation would soon be gone forever. Every drop on his skin was a goodbye. Every breath of steam was numbered. When he stepped out and dressed in the clean white uniform, the standard outfit for the condemned, he was no longer Michael Perry the inmate. He was Michael Perry, the corpse in waiting. At 12:30 p.m. came the cruelest moment of all. His mother arrived. They sat across from each other with bulletproof glass between them, phones pressed to their ears, so close yet impossibly far. For the first time that day, Perry's composure broke. His voice cracked, tears came. But here's the torture: they couldn't touch, couldn't hug, couldn't hold hands one last time. Just voices through a phone line and faces distorted by scratched glass. She was escorted away at 1:30 p.m. Perry didn't watch her leave. He stared at the floor for 10 minutes, motionless, as the reality set in. He would never see her again. She would never hold her son again. Only memories and regret. At 3:30 p.m., Perry's last meal arrived. 3 bacon, egg, and cheese omelets, 3 chicken and cheese enchiladas, 3 sodas, and Dr. Pepper. This is one of death row's strangest traditions. The state will kill you, but first, it'll give you whatever you want to eat. It's a gesture of humanity in an inhumane process, or perhaps just a way to ease the conscience of the executioners. Perry ate slowly, deliberately, not because the food tasted good, but because eating was an act of control. In a day where every moment was orchestrated by others, this meal was his choice. But he couldn't finish it. His stomach was in knots. The food turned to ash in his mouth. Think about what it means to eat your last meal. Every bite is a countdown. Every swallow is a moment closer to death. You're not savoring the food, you're savoring existence itself. The act of chewing, of tasting, of being alive. These simple things we take for granted become precious when you know they're about to end. Perry barely managed half the meal before pushing it away. At 5:45 p.m., 4 officers entered the cell. Calm, professional, practiced. Stand up. Perry rose quietly. No resistance, no struggle. What would be the point? He was escorted down what's called the death walk. Just 30 feet of hallway, but the longest journey of his life. Through one steel door, then another, each clang echoing like a funeral bell. The room was cold, pale green walls, designed to look like a medical facility, not a killing room. A gurney waited in the center, basically a hospital bed with leather restraints. Perry climbed onto it himself. He didn't fight, didn't scream. He simply lay down and allowed the officers to strap him in. 2 needles were inserted into his arms, one for each intravenous lines. Backup systems in case one fails. On one side of the glass partition sat his mother and aunt, faces pale, eyes red, hands trembling. On the other side sat the family of Sandra Stotler, the woman he murdered. They came to watch him die, to witness justice or revenge or closure or whatever this moment was supposed to provide. Perry could see them all, and they could see him. At 6 p.m., the warden leaned in close. "Do you have any final words? This is it. The last chance to speak, to explain, to apologize, to proclaim innocence, to say goodbye." Perry's voice trembled as he spoke. "I want everyone to know what happened here. This atrocity. You are forgiven by me." Then he turned toward the glass where his mother sat. "Mom, I love you. Dad, I'm coming home." His father had died just weeks before the execution. Perry believed he was about to reunite with him. A single tear rolled down his cheek. It would be his last. At 6 p.m., the executioner, unseen, in another room, pressed the button. 3 chemicals entered Perry's bloodstream in sequence. First came sodium thiopental, a sedative. It's supposed to render you unconscious, to spare you from feeling what comes next. Perry's eyes fluttered, his breathing slowed. Second came pancuronium bromide, a paralytic. It stops your muscles from moving, including your diaphragm. You can't breathe. You're suffocating, but you can't even gasp. Perry's chest rose once, twice, then stopped. Third came potassium chloride. This stops your heart. It burns through your veins like fire, excruciating pain if you're still conscious. The room fell silent except for quiet weeping. A mother on one side, a daughter on the other. At 6:17 p.m., a physician entered, checked Perry's vitals, listened for a heartbeat that would never come again. Time of death, 6:17 p.m. Michael James Perry, 28 years old, was gone. The execution took 15 minutes, but the real torture had lasted 24 hours. Death itself is quick, relatively painless if the chemicals work correctly. It's over in minutes, but those final 24 hours, that's the real punishment. It's psychological warfare, the anticipation, the dread, the forced goodbyes, the sounds of the chamber being prepared, watching the clock, knowing exactly when you'll cease to exist. Most people fear death because of the unknown, but Perry's torture was the known. He had the date, the time, the method. He knew the room where it would happen. He knew who would watch. He knew what his last meal would taste like and what his last words would be. In medieval times, executions were public spectacles. Crowds gathered. People cheered or jeered. It was brutal, but it was quick. Modern execution is different. It's sanitized, clinical, hidden behind prison walls. But for the condemned, it's arguably more cruel because of the extended psychological torture. You don't just die, you experience every moment leading up to death with full awareness. You feel time drain away. You watch your life compress into hours, then minutes, then seconds. Until the very last moment, there's a sliver of hope. Maybe the phone will ring. Maybe the governor will grant a stay. Maybe the Supreme Court will intervene. Perry's legal team had filed emergency appeals right up until the end. He knew they were trying. He knew there was a chance, however slim, that he might live another day. But the phone never rang. The door opened instead. And that hope, that tiny, desperate hope, died right before he did. On July 1st, 2010, the state of Texas executed Michael James Perry for the murder of 3 people. Sandra Stotler, her son Adam, and his friend Jeremy. Was justice served? Sandra's daughter said afterward, "It's not a good day for anybody. I needed to see if he was the monster I built him up to be. Apparently, he is." But she also said she felt sorry for Perry's family, because ultimately, this execution created more pain, not less. More grief, not closure. Perry maintained his innocence until the end, though the evidence overwhelmingly pointed to his guilt. His accomplice, Jason Burkett, received life in prison instead of death, sparking debates about fairness and consistency in capital punishment. But here's what haunts me most about this story. Michael Perry was 19 when he committed these crimes, a teenager with a broken childhood, untreated mental illness, and a history of abandonment. He spent 8 years on death row from age 20 to 28. His entire adult life was spent waiting to die. The execution took 15 minutes, but those final 24 hours, knowing exactly when death would come, saying goodbye through glass, eating a last meal with a churning stomach, walking the death walk, lying on that gurney while strangers strapped you down. That was the real punishment. That was worse than death itself. This is the reality of death row that most people never think about. We debate whether the death penalty is just, whether it deters crime, whether certain crimes deserve the ultimate punishment. But we rarely discuss the psychological torture of the condemned in those final hours. The anticipation, the forced rituals, the goodbye you can't avoid. Michael Perry is gone. His victims are gone. And the families on both sides are left with scars that will never fully heal. For lives lost to senseless violence and a justice system that believes death can answer for death. Thanks for watching. This is Crime Shade, where we uncover the darkest sides of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below.